All right, welcome to the Tough Love
Hi.
Teri Podcast. So I am here with Miss Alexandrea Johnson, who is how do you describe yourself I was going to say a boudoir photographer, but I don't think that is how you describe yourself.
Yeah, not so much anymore. I would say I like to claim intimate portraiture and therapeutic photography. So the therapeutic photography is everything that is like whole person approach based for the sessions, and then the intimate portraiture is meaning someone could be dressed head to toe or they could be completely bare. It's whatever is intimate to them, and we're taking that walk with them to like help them see themselves in that space
Oh,
during their
that's
session.
awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So, give people a little bit of context as to like your journey to getting to this point, because I know your background is in therapy, right? You
Mm-hmm.
yourself are a trauma therapist, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
I kind of
so take us on your
hopped
journey.
around. Okay. It started. I feel like this is one of those things I may have manifested when I was maybe 14.
Okay.
I always said I wanted to do art therapy after I had some personal loss, and art and photography guided me through that. Portraiture kind of guided me through that, and so I knew I wanted to go to school for psychology and art, to see how I could bring the two together. And then there weren't really a whole lot of programs in place for art therapy, at least here in the United States, that were available for undergrad. So I kept pushing on that path, trying to bring the two together and make it make sense. And then all while having photography business to kind of pay the bills on the side, like a nice side hustle. Um, and it was a lot of it was like the classic typical like start out photography stuff, like you see on Pinterest.
Yeah.
And then but I wanted more, and I kept pushing, and I was like, I need more because I don't like to do the same thing twice. So I kept pushing with my schooling, and the way it was kind of lining up with employment, honestly, that was available, there weren't a whole lot of jobs, so the photography kept looking really good and kept staying on the side of me pushing my schooling. And so I ended up getting my master's in, I got my degree in psychology and art. And then I ended up getting my master's in school counseling and I only ended up switching to school counseling because we ended up moving because we were a military family. So I had to switch out of my mental health counseling, finished it. There were no jobs in any schools. I realized that the public school system was not exactly what I was excited about working in either.
I can feel that
Um,
one. I went to school to be a teacher, and then I was like, oh no, no. But I'm
yeah, it was.
teaching just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening. And I have 4 kids, so it was also that kind of my own like come to Jesus moment of what kind of parent I wanted to be too, because I was like, I can't be saying I don't want to work in these schools but then have my kids in these schools. And
Mm.
then so that affected things too. So I kept pushing this, the schooling. I got my master's done, there was no work. Photography was killing it, which was great, but I still wasn't happy. And boudoir kept kind of being this back thing where I really enjoyed seeing humans get excited about their bodies.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if it was the way I was raised or because it was very modest upbringing, but it excited me seeing people excited. So mix that with limited jobs, photography, and then I decided I was like, I'm gonna go back to school again because there's no work and student loans are calling. So I went back to school for my CAGS, which is the Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies. I call it like it's like a diet PhD, or it's
There
like
you go.
the pre, like it's the baby one, like it's
Yeah, the Cliff
almost there.
Notes.
We just need a little more things. So I have that in trauma counseling and trauma and rehab counseling.
Okay.
So for the trauma rehab counseling, that landed me working in a methadone clinic. So I was working with humans every day from 4:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon, dealing with co-occurring conditions, meaning like people who would have maybe a history of abuse and trauma mixed with mental health disorders, mixed with unfortunate life circumstances like low income, criminal records, often criminal records that probably were not worthy of their situation. And so it was turned into this whole situation of Loved my job, totally loved my job, had no energy for photography anymore because of the hours, and was completely limited on how I could help people because of the guidelines in place by like government restrictions and
Yeah.
insurance and things like that. So I was working towards getting my license, and I became really ill. And I think it was the stress of not being able to help people that I wanted to help people.
Mm.
And I kind of quit. I worked all the way to the point where everyone in my life said, you need to get to this point. This is when you get there, you're going to be at the top, and
That's
you'll
it.
have all the
Right.
things. And I was working over 50 hours a week in a basement with no windows in a methadone clinic, being called words that I was told you weren't supposed to say to people, like on a daily basis, because people are in pain,
Yeah.
and working for a system that was not helping. And I wasn't able to do any art, and I fell apart.
Yeah.
So I fell apart. Boudoir was still there. Wedding industry was still going before COVID. And it was actually my partner he kept pushing me, and he was like, you could do this art therapy thing. You could put these things together. And all I kept saying is, I can't, because if I want to have a license, I can't work with people in this way.
Mm.
And then we just were like, well, wait, what if we didn't get a license? Like, what if I didn't do that? Because I was literally making $18 an hour. I was making less money doing the work I was told to do than when I was doing what I wasn't supposed to be doing. And I was actually helping more people, and I was surviving. So I was
And you
thriving,
were doing it
actually.
in a way that brings you actual joy instead of just
Yeah.
like abiding by somebody else's rules.
And that kind of became almost like a mantra. Like, for us, we started noticing things where, like, I grew up, things that were natural to me that I was told not to do because they were weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that kind of linked into the way that the system worked. And I noticed how that worked into our psychology. And same thing with labels of diagnosis. All of a sudden, I was like, hold on. I could, from my own experiences, not to diagnose oneself, but like, if my girlfriends and I wanted to sit down and start playing like who's got what symptoms and get out the DS, that like we all are a bit cuckoo cuckoo. So like I just realized it was a really good place for us to start with. We wanted to talk about bodies. We knew bodies were, and we weren't worrying about catering to young women. We wanted to cater to humans who were already reaching out to us.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was through my social media, because they saw that I was doing counseling, and I would get random questions from people, like an inbox message, like, hey, I saw this. Is this normal? I know I shouldn't ask you, but, and me, I would, of course, answer,
Yeah.
because I just, this moral, ethical obligation, and because it's easy. I already had, like, okay, I can do
Yeah.
that for you. So it all kind of came together. And so it was boudoir, and then it got very edgy. Because in that exploration, we noticed the people with the more intense trauma that they weren't talking about or dealing with, they actually had more of an urge to push themselves in front of the camera in a safe space, like a judgment-free space, realistically,
Yeah.
because they weren't photos that they were planning to put on their social media.
No.
These weren't photos they were, yeah. And if they did, I got kicked off for 30 days because they always tagged me. But they all kind of came together really, it was almost like poetically, like it. And then one day I was just like, oh my God, we're doing art therapy. But we're doing it with photography.
Yeah.
And it was just this very magical thing that just sort of happened. And now we have a studio. So
Yeah, and I always think like that's why I like when people fill in the context of how they got to this point, because it's like for most of us it very much was like, oh, I'm doing what everyone told me I should do. And as creatives we end up dying a little bit inside when we try. We're like,
yeah.
they told me I should have everything and I don't feel like they think I should feel. And that made me wonder, like, do those people feel good about the things that they've achieved? Probably not. But they're just doing it because that is what is like what we're taught to do.
Yep.
So I like hearing people's stories about how they basically fuck the system and we're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Nah, my heart's calling me. Like, that's overpowering the like the what's the part, like the stable part of me, like I'm ready to like flip the fucking table because I can't do like
Okay, you're
the
saying
only
fuck. That
other
makes me feel
option
better.
is
Okay.
dying, you know.
Yeah, that was actually, I met somebody when I worked at the methadone clinic, and she said it perfectly one day. I was all raveled up because I couldn't help somebody, and I was like hitting every wall, like how I could help them. And it was when you're dealing in a methadone clinic, you don't know if someone's going to die the next day. Like it's one of those, like, will they go home and overdose tonight because we did something wrong and
Yeah.
didn't help them today? So like I was all like spun up, and I had this friend who literally said, like, do what's feeling natural to you, and if it's not working, like if other people are telling you it's not working, fuck that noise. And that fuck that noise has been like every time I get stuck, I go back and say, all right, fuck that noise. So whenever you just said fuck, I was like, okay, good, we can say fuck. Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, it's the internet, we can do whatever we want, and I swear all the time.
Okay.
That's fine. But yeah, so now one of the cool things that I like about that you create for your clients, and when I first heard it, I was like, what? Is human soup. So tell me a little bit where that concept came from, and then explain to people what that is, because like the visual of human soup is like, whoa, but
yeah,
but the actual visual of it, the actual images you create as a result of it are absolutely beautiful.
Thank
so
you.
Yeah, so like where did that concept come from for you? And like, yeah.
The human soup, it was a very entertaining, almost like brain fart that happened when we said it. But we had somebody who came to us, and they had done a milk bath previously, and I was like, I don't want to do a milk bath. But like that was just and no judgment to anyone doing, I just had done them so many times before, and doing this for a decade, I was like, I don't know if I can do another milk bath. And we started asking her questions to see if we could tweak it different, like, what's your favorite color? Like, and then what kind of flowers do you like? And then it was just a normal get to know each other conversation. And then from that, all of a sudden we're like, what if we just put all of these things into the milk bath? But I'm not going to use milk products either, because I don't want to use any. I was in the headspace, I didn't want to use any animal products at that time. And I was like, what if we made something really healthy? Like, what if we made something that felt good to be in?
Yeah.
And I totally love the store Lush. So they have these bath bombs, and we were just like, what if we just made it into an experience all in itself, that they come in and everything's customized to the person.
Yeah.
So they don't pick what they're going to see. They tell us about themselves, and then we bring everything out and we see what draws their attention. And then we literally throw it into our oversized jacuzzi tub. I climb up on the tub. My partner holds the back of my pants in the light to make sure that we don't fall on anyone. Yeah. And we take the shots, and we literally squish these people into these tubs, and they love it. Yeah. And it's really cool because you have to be all squished and rolled up. So you have to see your body in a way that we're not used to seeing our bodies, but you have nothing to compare it to because we made it up. We made up this human soup thing. So like, you can't get mad and be like, oh, I'm not all long and elongated. Like, no, we squished you up into a bowl of soup.
You're in a bowl of soup.
Yeah. So when we have people who are, especially where we live, we're in Augusta, Georgia. So we're on the Bible Belt. Everything is, well, Georgia just went blue. Whoop, whoop. But everything is we say it's kind of like blast in the past. Yeah. So when we moved down here, we're like, we can do things that we see from outside influences. Like when we go to Vegas, or when we go to New York, or we follow your stuff in Canada and all of this, we're like, they're not doing this here. So we can kind of like cruise in looking like we're new and stuff. And we're actually like
really break the mold for where you are. Yeah, I think that's really
because awesome. Everything's a little bit dated. So this human soup concept, it was kind of fun here because people were they're still riding on this milk bath thing. And we know that this was like, we see this as like a come and go trend within our industry, but like this idea of throwing massive amounts of glitter and fresh flowers and essential oils and what else we put in there.
It's basically like a potion. You're making like a person potion.
It's a potion. Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And it's all for the person. And then we do colors too. Like we really try to put in some color theory into it, and like matching colors with emotions and where people are at. Same thing for flowers. If they have meaning, any sort of symbolic meaning to the person. We've done fruit. I really want to do cereal.
Yeah.
Cereal's next. I'm like dying to get someone in there with like, that one I'll put milk in. We'll go for that one.
Yeah, that one makes sense to put milk in for. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then also the concept of, I don't know if you've ever heard of the books growing up there, the soup for the soul, the
Oh,
chicken
chicken
soup
soup
for
for
the
the
teenage
soul.
soul or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. I had a sister who had passed away, and I was gifted those books like on the regular after she passed. And I honestly, I think I only read one, and I was just like, okay, thanks. And I took from it what I took from it, but now 20 years later, I'm like, hey, you guys, we're making soups for your soul. Like, it's
Yeah.
as adults, like, we're going to make you feel better. And it might only be a 15-minute experience, but actually, that's not true. The whole experience is about an hour because they're laying the stuff out. Then they get in the tub, they
Well, I think
watch us
it's
build the
very,
soup.
yeah, it's very ritualistic. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
and that's really cool. Do you, if you don't do this, you should do this, but,
Okay.
do you send them home with like a collection of little bits of all the things that you've put, like a
We tell
potpourri
them they can
of
take
the,
whatever they would like. And then it's really cute because people are very polite and they never have their cell phones out. They're always trying to be very protective of our space. And also we do these sessions in our home
yeah,
because the tub that we have is like, I can't replicate this
yeah,
quality
it's beautiful.
90s tub.
Yeah.
And um so we do that here. So people have been very respectful of it, but I always at the very end, I'll be like, you want your cell phone? You want to go take some selfies? I'm going to leave you alone in here, and we'll turn up the music because
That's
there's
all.
always music going. And then we leave them alone. And usually at that point, the bathroom smells like heaven. And we leave them alone. And they take all the shots, and we just say, tag us, go ahead and tag us. And
Yeah.
it's kind of fun because they promote us. And we
Yeah.
don't have to actually do anything. And they're promoting from a state of pure joy and
Yeah.
relaxation.
And like
And they look so
luxurious.
good because they're all like sitting in the tub and we're out of there. We're not even in there anymore. So
Yeah.
there's no like the pressure's been taken off. Like we wait until after.
That's really
Um
awesome.
yeah, but the flowers, we've sent flowers home. I have this problem where if the flowers don't all the way get used, we'll be calling people. I'm like, please come and do shoots. I have more flowers. Like I can't let their lives be wasted without more photos.
Well, I'm
So
like, I want to do a shoot like that. It would be so awesome. This is the problem with me doing this podcast. Everybody, I'm like, I need you to shoot me. So I'm gonna go on
I will
this
come up
tour
there.
where just other people photograph me all the time.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Terry, I'm getting you into soup. We're making a
Oh
soup for
yeah,
you.
I'll come to Georgia for sure. Well, eventually, not for a
Eventually.
while, but yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to come.
whenever the
You'll have to come
borders
to the
open up.
studio.
Yeah, so that's really cool. So then, and before we came onto the call, so that's one project, not project, but like kind of one thing that you've really like harnessed and made your own kind of thing. I did want to say when I first got my tub in the studio, which I can't put like water in or anything liquid because it's not plumbed. But when I first got it, I asked people, I was like, if you could fill the tub with anything, like what would it be? And so I wanted to do a project where it was like people like covered in like excess of the thing that they love the most. So I've done that with books and stuff like that. But then I was like, this is too much effort. And it's like heavy stuff
It's
on
a
people's
lot.
bodies.
It's a whole thing, especially when you customize it to the person. And then you want to get it right. You don't want to like, that's the thing is you don't want to get it wrong. Like even as simple
Because
as
then you gotta
color,
drain the tub and you gotta like do it all like it's and the cleanup alone would
the
be
cleanup's
definitely
hilarious. I take pictures every time of the cleanup because it drains out, and then I'm just like, look at the massive amounts of organic materials gathered at the bottom of my tub. Like at some point, we're
your
gonna have to
plumbing
call a
is
plumber.
probably magical. Yeah, exactly. They'll be like all this glitter comes out.
I know.
Awesome. So yeah, so tell me about before we came on and started recording, I had asked you like what are you working on right now, or like what kind of upcoming projects do you have? So fill us in a little bit about this upcoming idea that you have. And it involves, I will tell people, it involves sometimes insects. I saw spider photos.
Yeah, trigger warning, everyone. Trigger warning. There's crawly bits that we've been working with. Yeah, we got really lucky. We randomly met a business here, Not Normal Exotics here in Augusta, Georgia, and it's this really cool guy, and he collects all of these critters, all these weird critters. That's what he calls them, is the weird thing. And I was like, oh, buddy, we're gonna be friends. And as soon as someone says anything weird, I'm like, oh, okay, call me. And it was actually for my birthday that I
Oh.
had said I wanted to do a birthday shoot this year because we had to move our opening for the studio because of COVID and life and all of that. So we were like, well, let's do a birthday shoot. And I wanted to do something with this guy's critters and the concept of me facing my fears. And then if it worked, then we would be comfortable and other people could maybe want to do pictures with snakes and stuff. And snakes, spiders, hedgehogs, like there's a hedgehog, there's little ducks, there's all sorts of things, but everyone has their, it's the silliest, it's not silly, it's based on something, but when it comes down to it, once you hold these things that really have no intention of harming you and they're just as much scared, or you're holding these things and you realize that they're a living scared thing like you are,
Mhm.
and you just sit in that respect for a minute, all of a sudden you realize that how that fear isn't, it's not really built on anything, and it's more of an anxiety that we can control,
Yeah, it's
and then
like
you can actually have fun with it.
the worst, like the thing that hasn't happened yet, like the
Yes.
fear that you're like, it could bite me or it could like
Mm-hmm.
do this thing to me or whatever. And that's the fear, I think.
Yeah,
That
and they
and
and they could do things to us, but we could do a heck of a lot worse to them as well. So like the idea of, it was funny because I thought the snakes were going to be scarier. I was more scared of the snakes. Like I actually said I didn't want to live in Georgia because there are snakes here. Mind you, in all of the years I've lived here, I've only ever seen one snake, and it was probably about 30 feet in front of me and had no intention of bothering me. But I
yeah.
was like, that was a snake. No, thank you. I'm scared. Um, so this was me like being like, I'm gonna do pictures with the snake. I'm gonna be in a controlled environment with professionals. They're going to teach me, and we're gonna leave this, and we're gonna have respect for each other. And at the very least, I thought my kids would think I looked cool for a minute.
Yeah.
Like that was like at the very least. And what ended up happening from it was, um, there were so many snakes. He brought so many things. I think he was trying to impress me, and in the process, I'm a person who, like, if someone said like offers me something, I'm going to say, "Let's start there and we'll go backwards." Like if it's too much, I'll say, "Let's do less." And then so I ended up with 12 snakes on me. Yeah, terrifying. But when there's 12 snakes on you, I would not recommend that. But if there's 12 snakes on you, you can't worry about one biting you.
Yeah, that's true.
There was no me worrying about one biting me. It was literally me just focusing on my breathing
Yeah.
and not moving. And because there was a camera out, I was like, oh, let me also try to make sure I angle myself nicely because
And
I'm
pose.
not doing this again potentially.
Yeah.
So um at the end of that though, I realized I was just like, those snakes did not care about me in the slightest bit. They're like, if anything, they just wanted my warmth, and
Yeah.
they wanted to know I wasn't going to hurt them,
Yeah.
just like I wanted them to not hurt me. And that was that. And then next they brought out the tarantulas, and I understand people not wanting to do shoots with tarantulas. Um, I actually afterwards I bought myself earrings. These are little tarantula earrings that I got myself because
Oh, awesome.
as like a reminder of, even though I'm still like, I don't know if I want to do that again. I did it.
But you did it. Yeah, you
I
at least
did it.
tried it. So now you can say
I
you're
did
like,
it. And
yeah.
it was fun. It was a rush and I didn't get hurt. And there were two, those spiders had little personalities, and it was a very intense like thing to catch onto, was realizing once again, like these are living things, like trying to exist amongst us.
Yeah.
Like why are we treating it as anything different? And so in that, it was like, for me it was therapeutic because I faced a fear. And then I was realizing when I post the pictures and I got so many people who are upset with me for not putting a trigger warning,
Mm.
I realized there were a lot more people who were very sensitive to that as a thing. Then I was like, oh, well, maybe not do 12 snakes, but maybe what if we did one cute little tiny one? And
Yeah.
we dressed them all up and we gave them the vibe of feeling like Cleopatra or Medusa. And all of a sudden you have somebody who went from being scared to empowered
Yeah.
because we put a theme on it or a vibe with it. And then, or we find a historical figure or a creative person, that role model that we're like, wait, I like that person and they do these things. Why can't I be them? Even if they're not real, we're trying to make that person feel like it could be real.
Yeah.
So we're excited because we're gonna start offering it like throughout the studio as like a regular thing. If people can come in and say like, I want to try this thing, whether it's for like a branding or style shoot, or they want to do the therapeutic experience, or like me, like for my birthday, I just wanted the rush. I'm like,
Yeah.
I have been living in my house, pandemic style, with my children, very little social interaction. It's not really all that safe to be around humans right now, but you can stick a bunch of like snakes aren't running around with COVID from my understanding.
Yeah. Oh
So
man.
it was a nice experience, but then from that experience we learned a lot. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, because there are other photographers that listen to this and they might be like, oh, that'd be really cool to do a shoot with a snake or a shoot with a spider
yeah,
or
you got to make sure you have
whatever.
a professional who knows with you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on and say, like, how important is, or even not even the animal part of it, but delving into the exposure therapy piece to it. How important is it to have an understanding of the therapy side of things before walking people through, like,
Yeah, you have to
throwing
go
them into
step
these things?
by step. Like you have to tell people what they're going to experience, explain how they're going to experience it. If you can get them to understand how it's going to feel, which is why I it was so important. And it always is with our stuff. For I will try to do something before I ask anyone else to do it.
Yeah.
Always. And right to the point where it's even gotten me in trouble where somebody wanted to do some bondage kink type style shoots and I had no experience with it. So we went to the store, bought the things. I tried them on for photos and in turn got myself in trouble on the internet. But like, because I didn't think about it, but I wasn't going to ask somebody to do something that I didn't know how to. I need to kind of get into like the empathy part of it. Like I need to be able to explain how it feels so that I can make people, so when they're feeling it, I'm like, this is normal or this is not normal, or this is how I felt and how I navigated those feelings.
Yeah, it
So
allows
when
you to set better expectations, I think, for clients, which then allows them to decide, is that actually, like, because the fantasy
that's
is
what they want to
always better than
experience
the
or not.
reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the thing. So in their mind, they're like, oh my God, I want that photo. So for you to say, okay, but just so you know, like, here's the process.
Yeah.
Get that photo is, you might feel scared, you might be incredibly nervous, and here's your responsibility.
Yep.
Like, I think that's really important to have as photographers. It's important for photographers to know you can't just throw people into this and get the results that they're like, you have to set
No.
the expectation.
Yeah, it's all baby steps. And even with us for working with the not normal exotics, like we've told him time, like we're going to be very, like he brings his friendliest of critters. He brings, like, we have all of the ones, and it's probably going to sound crazy to say this, but like my kids have played with them. Like if my kids play with them, those are the only ones that other people are going to get their hands on. Like I know my kids, I trust my kids, I know how they operate. I don't know how other people operate. I don't know their fear. I don't know if they're going to throw a thing down on the ground or panic and step on it or anything like that. So all of it is very much like very, very controlled all the way through.
Yeah.
Like I would never throw 12 snakes on a person, but I know he did that because
because
I told him basically, I was like, do whatever, I trust you. And I was like, oh my God,
when I'm the same kind, I literally do the same thing though, where I'm like, do it to the max so that way I can scale back going forward. Yep. If I just do a little bit and I'm petrified, I will never venture beyond that. So like for me, it was like getting my bikini wax done. I went for the full Brazilian first. I was like, we're getting it all done, because if I get a bikini wax and that hurts like a bitch, I'm never doing it again. So like, yeah. So I was like, take the whole thing. But it's like, it's just easier to like scale back once you do that for some people.
Yeah. And the thing is, you have to be in the headspace to do that. You can't, we are like, we're the educators in this. And that's why I try to explain to people, like, even for photographers who are going to hear this and be like, that's a fun idea. I know a guy who has a snake.
Yeah.
That guy with that snake needs to be like, that snake's amazing. We've had no issues. I'm coming with you. I'm not leaving the space. Like, I don't want, like, I'm like, don't leave me with your critters.
Yeah,
like,
no. I did one snake shoot in my studio and I was like, you all can touch it. I'm okay. I'll be over here. And it was a lot.
it's a rush. And I think that's part of it too, is that
that's for sure. But yeah, similar to that though, I was like, I made sure the handler was there, the person that owned the snake like stayed by, was the one that moved it, like if it was starting to do its thing.
Yep.
Like I was not going to be the one that jumped in there and be like, don't do that. So
Yeah.
like,
Oh, and the other big lesson that we learned is when you shoot with these critters, the critters who you're following, you're not following the person. The person is, they're the comfort. Their job is to exist and comfort the critter. And then the critter is who the photographer follows. Like, you cannot tell a snake to stay still. And if you have that person try to hold the snake, you're going to anger the snake.
Yes.
So, or even the spider, like I had a tarantula crawling on me, and even when I say that, I get the feeling in my back of it. Oh, I know. It was a tricky one. I wouldn't recommend that one, but like whenever my partner shot it, he knew, like, I was like, I'm going to stand and I'm breathing. You chase this freaking spider. And I followed the feeling spider, and I just knew to follow where the camera was. And I was like, we got the shot, get the spider off me.
Yeah.
But that 3-minute experience, that rush, that excitement harmed nobody. It was a good chemical release in my brain.
Yeah.
It was a good adrenaline rush for my body. I'm sure I got the blood flow to my face. I probably looked wonderful. And then I have this documented moment that when other people see it in their minds, I don't know, I spent like 5 hours hanging out with spiders, but like in reality, it was much shorter, but it doesn't matter. I did a thing that is my thing that I did. That's all mine, kind of thing. People I love helped support it and bring it together. So I'm grateful for them, their experience. And now I'm just like, why we should do this with more people.
Do this. Yeah. I think that's really cool. And even like, that's kind of an extreme analogy for boudoir or intimate portraiture in general, is like, do the thing that scares the shit out of you. Cause so many people are just afraid to take their clothes off for a photo shoot. Not that you have to take your clothes off, but just getting in front of the camera and being it all about you. There's no kids in front of you. There's no like, right. And all of that, and there's no partner for you. It's literally just you. So it's kind of like you going through that is like how your clients, like how a new client that knows nothing about the photography industry or how things work, is how they feel, like that rush and like just breathe through the hair makeup process would be similar to that, I think. And so it's good to have those experiences as photographers, to be like, oh yeah, this is my first time doing this. I don't, like, while I have the expectations that somebody set with me what I can expect from this, you're still experiencing it for the first time. And that's like comes with its own like anxiety and adrenaline.
Yeah, and we want to change the negative anxiety into like a positive excitement. And that's, I think, the big goal. I think play therapy. I think that's what the other thing that I need to make sure I say is the underweaving kind of belly of this whole situation is we're trying to encourage adult play therapy.
Yeah.
And
that's really awesome.
Back to like my background, I used to do play therapy with kids. I used to work with children with autism, and for like a long time, like the whole baby making era. And the play therapy was amazing. And because it was a chance to pull out of the structure and like let loose, let the kid be weird and have fun. And then they would be relaxed and released. And then they could go back to like the structured learning. To me, that was the reward. So I think we're both, like my partner and I, and our friend Jess, who is the reason we got the studio. She's like our fairy godmother who came in and was like, this has to happen. So she made it happen for us. And so we're trying to make this adult play space, essentially. Like it's all family friendly. Our families that we work with tend to be families that are of an alternative lifestyle. I say that in air quotes. Especially being in Georgia, everything's so heteronormative.
Yeah.
I'm air quotes Christian here down in the South. And I was like, since I was like, you can't see, I'm saying air quotes Christian. Because it's not always the same. It's just a very complicated thing down here. So a lot of our clients tend to be, we're noticing now, are people, whether as simply as they're single parents or they're in poly relationships or same-sex marriages or interracial relationships or not Christian. and then they're all identify as being, their families call them weird for whatever. And then so when we're like, hey, get weird, they're like, ooh, wait, what are these weirdo people
Like,
over
I
here?
am that. Yeah, switching that that
So
label
now,
again.
yeah. So the intimate portraits turned into like, we might get them in for a boudoir session. And then now maybe we'll keep them for a couple therapy sessions, whether it's they want to do the human soup or they want to do the face their fear thing, or we have exercises too that we can do with people for like body love therapeutic stuff, which is a whole other conversation we'll have to have. And we get these people coming back, and then they have babies, and then they're like, Alex isn't as like scary and intense and weird as I would think. She has children and they seem okay, and she homeschools them and nobody's gotten in too much trouble yet. And so like
Yeah.
so now we have them and their family. So it's this interesting thing where it's like, yeah, we started out as boudoir and weddings, but like, and I was actually trying to get away from family stuff because I didn't want to do the Pinterest stuff anymore. And it's great for learning, but it's been a decade. I'm not trying to learn on Pinterest anymore. I want people to learn from me. And so I want people to take like all the educational learning that like my very debt-ridden brain of all that learning I've done. And like want people to learn so we can help people, like, and we can
Yeah.
do better. And like, just sometimes it's just a matter of having the information and then all going, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way, and realizing that we literally could do better.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make this adult play therapy space that um, people can come in and let their guard down. Like we have beanbag chairs.
That's awesome.
We have like unicorns and sparkles and things like that. And then in the back, it's like more of a shooting space. But in that same space where we have like the unicorns and sparkles, we have a mannequin that's wearing bondage.
Yeah.
Um, but there's rainbows everywhere. So it's like this thing where our kids will go and actually go hang out and do their homeschooling in this space. And they're like, oh, it's so pretty and colorful. And then adults come in and they're like, hold on, this is kind of fun. I kind of like this. And so it's
Yeah.
almost this lounge adult play therapy space, but we shoot in it.
That's
So you can
awesome.
come and sit and stay and chat and hang out. And that's the goals for the studio in the long term, is it's a space people can come and unwind. So even if we don't shoot, but if they're feeling up for it, we'll pick up the camera and be like, hey, let's go play back here and work through this idea or
Yeah.
do this sort of thing. So um, we're doing this whole play therapy concept too. And we're going to open it up at night too. I think we're going to do like couples shoots and have it be closed off to couples and do couples exercises together, like breathing together, say
Yeah.
something nice, and then now throw paint and sparkles at one another. And
Yeah,
we're going to
I
take
think
photos
it's
of it. And now you
really
have art for your
cool.
wall.
And it's just like, yeah, when I was taking my psychology class, that was the thing we talked a lot about, obviously play, but that was when also those experiential pop-up, like what I don't even, the Happy Place was one that came to Toronto. And essentially it's like the different rooms that you go to, but ideally like kids can come, but mostly it was just adults that were there, like taking silly photos and like playing in a huge ball pit with other adults, and
Yeah.
like all of these like things that you think you are making snow angels and glitter. That was another one, or making angels,
Yep.
I guess, glitter angels. But that was like my experience to see how important play was. And I took that back to the studio, similar to what you're doing there. And like similar fashion, learned on Pinterest, learned all the things you should do, and was like, it's like, no, I want you to put on this sparkly, that's why I'm wearing stars on my face right now. Like put on this sparkly fringe jacket and like dance around like nobody's watching. Like just like have fun and twirl and like play and throw glitter at me. Like let me spray you with my water gun.
Be
like
extra, just have fun. Like no one's gonna judge you in this space. Like especially when like with us being the creators, like this is our space, guys. Like you're safe here. Like, and that's what you do. You're offering that to people so they can come in and they can just like unwind and be silly, and then they leave and they have to go back to normal life. So like it's a break. It's good.
One of the things I ask clients too, which is really like my favorite thing when they're getting hair and makeup, it's in the same place where all my wardrobe is. So I'm like, what is something you like want to wear but would never wear?
Yes,
like,
we do that as
what
well.
What is the texture? So then I'm like, would it be sequin? Would
Mhm.
it be fringe?
Be
Faux
like
fur?
velvet.
What is it? And then they're like, oh, I don't know. So it's funny to watch them be like, I could never. And you're like, just put it
Yes.
on. Just put it on. We don't have to take photos. But all of a sudden
Yeah,
they're
just
like,
see how you feel in it.
oh, yeah. It's such a cool experience to watch people, like adults, like let their guard down and just like
Yep.
laugh, and like they literally transport back to when they were like, that's what they looked like when they were kids.
Yes.
Like it's like, there's the sparkle, there it is,
Yep.
you've like
And
hidden
it's so
it away in
cute
your
because
corporate job.
you start hearing some of the defeating language that maybe they heard growing up. And then that's where for us, like, I think the training kids come in for me where I grab that language and I'm like, and I know you do that as well. And like, we grab it and we're like, so why would you, let's sit in that for a minute. Like, why are you
Yeah,
feeling this way? Like, that's just some silly, like poppycock from like way back in the day. Those old people said, and we don't think they're silly now. Like, they're not in charge. We're in
I'm like,
charge.
who
Like,
taught you that? Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And then like same thing with like sparkles. Like, who said you can't wear sequins to the grocery store? Like, you know how much happier people would be if they saw people wearing sequins to the grocery store?
Every time I wear something that's extra out, like especially Winnipeg, like a super small town city kind of
Yeah.
vibe, is always compliments. People are like, oh my
Yep.
God, I love your jacket. Oh my
Yeah, there's
God.
no negativity.
Yeah.
The only negativity is the people who really aren't saying anything, they're just looking.
They're like,
And so you honestly, you just tell yourself in your head they're so taken back
that's what I do.
that they don't
I'm
know
like,
what to
oh,
say. They're just
this.
like, "Oh my God, I wish I could rock that sequin thing at the grocery store." And then you just tell yourself that
Yeah.
because what is that quote? Especially you're doing these quote projects. I was noticing that it's what other people's opinion of you is not your
Oh,
business or
that's
something
their
like that.
business. Yeah. Other
Yeah,
people's
and as soon as
opinion of you is
like,
their
I have to
business.
remind myself that because I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do this thing because what if people think this? What if people think that? I'm like, that's why I didn't get my license. That's literally why I didn't go get my therapy license in the long term because I didn't want people I didn't even know controlling how I operated
Yeah.
and then how I could help people because everyone needs something different. I'm not for everybody. I know I'm not for everybody. I'm definitely acquired taste, but it's just like glitter and sparkle is not for everybody. Like I don't run around with glitter and sparkle on me, but oh man, I love putting sparkle on other people. Like, but you want to throw some velvet on me? Oh, I'm all for it. You can like everyone has their thing. And that's the other part of the therapeutic is we acknowledge the sensory. If you hit the senses, they're
Yeah.
more likely to remember it. And if you have it as a positive impact, you're going more likely to have a positive experience.
Yeah, that's why I was asking about like what you send them home with after the human soup thing, because then they could like
They could
have
take
the
it with
same.
them.
Yeah, they could recreate it in their own tub at home.
I like that. I think
Actually,
I'm
you
going to have
should.
to build on that.
I was gonna say you should. What you should do. This is I have ideation where it's like ideas all the time, but you should literally consider working with somebody that does bath products, and
I was
then
toying with that. Yeah.
making tiny little like packets that you can send clients home with like one orange slice and one
Make
little
their
bit
own
so
mini
they can
human
recreate it
soups.
at home. Yeah.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. Yeah, we were talking about trying to link up with like someone for like bath products of some sort, like or spa, like home things. I love that idea. Like make your own. Oh, look, you got, and we were talking about having a storefront. Oh,
yeah,
that's a whole other thing. We
that's a
have
whole thing. There you.
where we're making masks that we're going to be selling
Oh, I
because we wear
saw that.
masks with shooting and they're all kind of activist type vibe
I saw
sort of
you had
stuff.
RBG in there, right?
Yeah, we have her in there. Oh, I love her. We have some middle fingers. We have some statement pieces like overall like if you're this close you're too close kind of thing. Like if you
Yeah.
can see this, you need to step back. If you have an
That's
opinion about this, you need to step back. Um and we learned that some of the art that we made that we can no longer post on social media because censorship keeps changing. We've decided we're going to put on shirts.
amazing.
So we're
That's
just
so
going to
good.
put it on shirts. And
Okay.
so we decided we're going to call it's called Fux, Fux. And because we should give some, we're going to
Yeah.
give some fucks because everyone's like, don't give a fuck. Like, don't give a fuck. Everyone needs to chill out. Don't give a fuck. Well, guess what? A whole lot of not giving a fuck got a lot of people hurt. So
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
flipping it. We're going to give some fucks.
I love
So
that.
we're trying to figure out, we're working it out still, but we're going to make like a charity nonprofit side of the Love Valley Studios. And we're going to have these masks affiliated, we call it activism. Was it leisure wear? Leisure wear
Masktivism.
for the stay-at-home activist.
You should call it masktivism.
So that's what we're trying to do. So that's the other thing, is we're going to try to bring the art into the clothing so we can kind of push the messages,
I love
all
that.
the body positive like messages and mental health positive messages and the mental health negative messages. Even like we got to talk about the ugly stuff,
Yeah.
because if you don't talk about the ugly stuff when you're in it, you feel like you're very alone, and
Mhm.
that's very, very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So whenever people are active about talking about these things or sharing content like photos from a session, and they're saying, oh, I did this when I was depressed, but now I'm not, and I look at it and it means something different, other people see that stuff and they connect back to it. So
Yeah. I
it's
think it's
we're
like,
trying to put all that stuff out there and shove it down everyone's throat, so they have to
well, that was
start
one of the
acknowledging
things
these
that
things.
I was drawn to that in your work, and which is one of the reasons why I wanted you to participate in the Boudoir University as one of the founding educators, because of that.
Thank you. I'm
Because of
so
your,
excited.
well, but it is because of your activism, like the way, like you're not just this way just in your business, but I also, because I follow you obviously personally as well, so I see that, and that's the important piece to me, is that people aren't just performative in this work. It is like, what are you doing at home? What are you saying to
Oh
your
yeah.
family members? And you're very very vocal about that.
Yeah,
And
it's
but that goes a lot further than somebody that's just saying it when it's trendy to say the things.
yeah,
And that was really, yeah, and that's why I wanted to align with people that were doing the work because it's the right work to do, not
yeah.
because the timing is right to do it. um
No, yeah, that was a hard one for me. That was I oof, that was a heartbreaking moment this summer when I realized, watching our industry kind of divide, realizing that people maybe we thought were better intentioned were not the best intentioned, and then while everything was falling apart sort of thing.
mhm.
I realized in that moment I was like, I could easily break and go away, and like never ever is the activism was rough, the family drama, because I realized that I did not align belief system wise with many of my relatives, and I had to make a decision like where I was going to stand, where I had to draw the line. So I drew a line, a very big line all over social media that everyone saw. But that I don't live near my family, so that's the only way we interact, and so I had to do it, otherwise I was going to
Yeah,
continue getting what was somewhat harassment, like,
yeah,
why are you doing this? It's a shame to the family, like why are you doing this activism stuff? And I was just like, because I have kids, because I have friends, because I would want someone to do that for me, like that's what I was hoping. And then everything kind of shifted, but I had to make a decision, and I almost didn't make it. And I think that's why the mental health part is so important, is like I almost quit, and then there was like that aha moment of like, I can't quit. Like I can't quit because more people are gonna get hurt. And
mm,
like I like to think of myself as pretty strong. And I was like, I was feeling pretty beat up. So and then I was like looking at the world, and I wasn't trying to gaslight myself, but like we do that. Like, oh, it could
oh
be
yeah.
worse. Like, look at what's happening everywhere else. But then I realized I kind of flipped it, and I was just like, well, if I feel shitty, imagine how much shittier all these other people feel that are the people that I'm trying to fight for them to be heard. And I'm over here like, wow, poor me, I want to quit. Like, imagine how everyone else feels. Like, and their shit's so much harder. So again, not trying to gaslight myself, but also trying to like put in pieces that we're all going through shit.
So what it, because again there are photographers, but also just humans in general that are also dealing with family that maybe
Yes.
is not on the same,
No.
page as they are when it comes to human rights issues,
It's like a
which sounds
generational
ridiculous.
gap. Like that's the
Yeah.
friendliest way I know how to put it.
So what is some advice, like whether or not it's like how you did the things, or how, if you had to do it again, maybe you would do it differently, I don't know, but like what is some advice you would give to somebody that wants to know how to put those boundaries in place? Because what happens when you don't put those boundaries in place is you get frustrated and
Mm,
irritated with the people, and then there's like this anxiety when you go to meet up with them or speak to them, there's always this like hanging over your head kind of thing. So what is one kind of thing that you would suggest when it comes to setting those boundaries? Like what
Communication and honesty were like, and acknowledging your own hypocrisies. Like I had to, because if you're going to talk to somebody about something that they're doing that bothers you, even if it, especially if they see it doesn't affect you, which very much, as light complexion folks talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a lot of walls being hit in conversations. And you have to like step out of it, and like, because if someone doesn't want to feel, they're going to feel attacked naturally. So they're already going to be looking for their defense. So you have to be willing to hear, mentally prepare for what they're going to say back to you, and acknowledge your own hypocrisies. Like I definitely like, oh, well, you didn't have a problem with that when you were younger, like that sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, hold on. I grew up, I learned, I know better now. I'm forgiving myself for my mistakes, and I'm trying to unlearn things that I once did. But when you explaining that to the people, like, you can unlearn these things, or it's okay that you learned it wrong. Like and I've done this so many times that I don't even know sometimes how genuinely I feel about it. Like, I've just gotten in the habit of saying it with older generational folks. Like, it's okay. You guys didn't have the internet. You didn't have all the information. You were surrounded by the people around you, and you were following the belief systems that you were told that you were supposed to believe, because those were the people you trusted. But they didn't have all the information. Now we have more information. So like, it's okay to be mad at yourself and feel embarrassed that you didn't have enough information. You acted wrongly, even if you had the best intentions. And that's the thing, is I have to keep it light. Like, I don't think you're trying to be a raging racist, bigoted asshole, even though you were. Like, you have to, because if you come out of attack mode, they're going to attack back, and they don't hear anything you say. So like, you just have to very kind of tiptoe along it. My social media page tends to come off a little bit more abrupt, but it's because by the time people get to my social media, I'm like, dude, you're not even talking to me anymore. Like, you're just showing up to start drama in my world, and we're not even like,
we're not doing that.
Even together. So is like, I use my fine line. Like, if you're here and you're still watching, like, this is how I'm operating. Don't try to change me. But when you're dealing with talking to family members or friends, you can't attack them for it. You can in your brain be like, oh my God, you super suck. But if you come in at it, if you come at it as if you want them to hear you, and you stroke their ego through the entire process, even if it makes you squirm a little bit, you can drop that act as soon as you know you have their attention. So it's more like, I just want to talk to you about this thing. It's just been sitting heavy on me. Like, you and I, include yourself in it, your own thing. So it's not you, it's like we, or I realized this. I don't know if you noticed this. It's the easiest way to kind of like tiptoe into the conversation. And then if it doesn't go well, then you can just drop the bomb and be like, you know what? I'm done with this. I tried. You're a giant turd, and I'm happy to have you. Best of luck.
And that's like, I think like, I was reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and in there, she like, basically the statement is like, I'm going to be who I am, and I just have to wait for the world to catch up. And I think that's like really like, that in itself is like, I'm trying to explain, like, it is my job to explain to you, like, if you really care about somebody, number one, acknowledging who are these few people that you will give that time of day to, and then figuring that out with them. And then if they're not willing to get on board, setting that and say, you know what, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I'm not responsible for your reaction.
And you have to just, you put yourself out that you tried, and then you got to separate, because you can't fix it. There's so many people. And I got to give a little credit to when I started learning about like astrology and birth charts, and then you throw in acknowledging trauma and mental health, and then you talk about people's socioeconomic statuses and where they come from, and religion, and if their parents are married or divorced, or like, nobody's the same, and everyone's coming at something different, and they literally could have woke up that morning and tripped over a shoe and like hit their head on the wall and just decide like they're in a bad mood. And that's their day, and that's going to be your interaction with them. It doesn't mean that's who they are as a person. So like, But unfortunately, if people do that on a regular basis and they get in the routine of like just a bunch of shitty days or shitty environment or shitty attitude, their behavior will kind of sit in that because that's just how our brain works. And so you have to start, if you want to break that, you have to start peeling away the layers and changing things. So it's
Yeah.
like you can't change people around you, but you can change the people around you. That
Yeah.
whole vibe, like
Yeah.
you
And I
can,
think, yeah, I just think that's really important for photographers that are in the business to understand that that amount of control that they have about that, not just for
mm-hmm.
their family members, but also clients, and
Yeah.
how important it is to understand what your values are so you can be vocal for your clients. Because if you're not, then people are getting harmed, like you said before, and stuff like that. And there are ways to deliver the message effectively that's not just like you're all a bunch of assholes if you don't believe in
Yeah.
exactly what I believe in, but
Mm-hmm.
rather just saying it in a way that is like, hey, I get it, I also used to be like this,
Yeah.
and then I read this book or I listened to this talk, maybe you'll find this helpful on your journey to
Yep.
unpacking it, and I think that's a beneficial way, but I've kept you long enough. Remember I said I'm like it'll be super short, and
Oh, you're fine.
know,
I'm a talker. I'll keep
um,
talking. So
but you have like really interesting stories, so that's why maybe we'll
oh,
just
thank
have
you.
to have you back later on for the
I
podcast.
would love
So
that.
for your next like 5,000 projects that you'll have on the go, I'm certain you're like me that way.
Yay.
Never a dull moment. That is for sure.
No.
Right?
No,
That's
I
that's
noticed
the
that whenever
beauty
I
of
get something
play.
really good, if there's
Yeah.
something really good, something really crazy is coming around the corner, which is just more influence for more art, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Good stuff all the time. I love it. I like that you execute it though. That's the difference there. You don't just have the idea. You also you're like, let's try it. Let's see what the fuck happens, you know?
yeah,
And I
thank
think
you.
that's really awesome. So before we go, is there anything that you want to add that we didn't get to talk about today, for people?
Um, I think the big thing is I know that the class, my content in my class is very heavy.
Mm,
It's very heavy and it connects kind of all, I'm sure, like I have to go finish listening to the rest of the classes and I'm excited to do that. But it's something that connects all of us though. Like trauma connects all of us. We all have trauma. So like it was important for me to like I wanted to do this too because I was like I need people to know that I'm not like this super moody like dark like oh the world is doom and I don't think so at all.
yeah,
I actually don't think people really mean to hurt people as often as they do, and it's a lot of it's just accidental crashes and insensitivities.
yeah,
um so I'm glad I got to like tell you about like the fun stuff, and I'm glad you brought up the human soup thing because I was like oh yeah my human soups.
yeah. I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, like we just the big thing is like I think we want to encourage as many people as possible to just stop telling people what they should be doing, instead just being like what do you want to do,
Mm,
and then how can I support, like if you can either be a helper or you can be like a doer, I guess. Like I want to do both, but I'm more of like I don't want to tell people what to do. I want them to tell me what they want and then I make it happen for them.
yeah, and then setting expectations around what that would look like from your area of expertise. I think
Yeah, so
that's the thing. It's like you tell me what you want, and I will tell you if I can do it, and if I can do it, here's what that would look like. I think
yeah,
that's the point. As opposed to you come, because before I actually did used to be like, this is exactly what's going to happen. This is exactly what you're going to do, and if you're not on board with that, then I'm not the photographer for you.
yep,
And then I was like, that's dumb. What are you doing? You know, not everybody wants to get naked. Not everybody like wants
yeah,
these things. Or like even for me, like to be photographed for a long time, I thought you just had to like look sexy. And then I identify as asexual. So why the fuck, like no wonder I don't like I do not connect with photos of me where I look sexy or
yeah.
seductive, whatever, because it's just not who I am. I would rather see me smiling or looking badass or whatever, because that's how I feel.
That's exactly how I feel. Like that's the funny thing that we run into, or people will be like, "That's so sexy." I'm like, "Really? That was the sexy one?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All
yeah,
right, we can go with that." Like
yeah.
I
So
wasn't trying for sexy on that.
I think that's like a really good place to end though for photographers to understand is like,
Yeah,
if you the people that say that get into boudoir and they say, oh, you're not a therapist. Wrong. If you're in the industry of boudoir photography, you have to have some semblance of therapy, like just some empathy,
Yeah.
some sort of something, because even if people are coming and take photos for their partner, there's still trauma around body image. There's still trauma around sexuality. There's still all of these things, which I think you have to have at the minimum an understanding of how we can be impacting our clients in a not good way or a positive way, which is why we have the Boudoir University.
Yes, very much so. And they need to take care of yourselves. Photographers have to take care of themselves after they do this work. They have to find a release of some sort, and maybe that's throwing 12 snakes on them, I don't know, but like
whatever it is,
whatever it is. But if you're going to do this work, you got to make sure you find a release too, because it's heavy.
That's what most people said from your course. That was the piece that they appreciated was in there. Like, what are you doing for you? Like, because we're like, oh no, I have to just keep giving. Okay, you're literally going to be a shell.
You have to go back and like rebuild yourself after. You have to take pauses. Yeah, we'll talk again. I'll get you all sorts of information on this. I could go all day long on vicarious trauma.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, my lady, for being on the podcast. And everyone, go check her course out. I will link all of her good stuff in the whatever you call it, description. Scripty thing, so you can go follow her work. Her website's up now, I hear, so that's good news. And so
finally got it up. Love Valley Studios
and all that good stuff. Awesome. Okay, bye.